Logout skips and death skips are nothing new. In fact, there's even add-ons that help you find the best place to execute them. One of the most used logout skips I think I've ever seen was definitely Blackfathom Deeps. This is because running all the way through caves full of inconveniences just slows down what you're actually trying to do. There's plenty of dungeons in Phase 1 and 2 with caves exactly like this. This could be Deadmines, Razorfen Downs, or even Uldaman, just to name a few. And I'm going to show you easy ways to get into all of these dungeons and more. If you're not familiar with what a logout skip is, basically you'll be in one place. Normally you're going to get on something higher than the floor, and then you're going to log out, and then once you reach the character selection screen, you're just going to log back in, and then you'll be somewhere completely different. Not only do these logout skips save time, but they could also potentially save you from dying, especially if you're on a PvP server. So I'm going to show you every relevant logout skip for Phase 1 and 2. Now, I am throwing one in for Phase 3, purely because I actually used it myself today, and it does work. And the only reason it's slightly relevant is because there's an elder down there where you can hand in, and you're going to get 50 reputation. Now, remember, if you do use that one, so it's Sunken Temple, just so you know. So obviously, it's going to be a lot more relevant in Phase 3, but if you want to get all the reputation because you've been going around maybe speaking to all the elders, there is one down in Sunken Temple that you can get to using this skip. We're not going to talk about anything that really hasn't got a lot of trash outside, so we're not bothered about Shadowfang Keep, we're not bothered about RFC or Stockades because they're in capital cities, we're not even really bothered about Razorfen Crawl because you just literally walk straight into the instance. So the first one would really be Deadmines. Now, it's quite a dense cave of mobs and it's just an annoying run through. Now, you will potentially need to kill one or two mobs that are in your way if somebody hasn't already killed them recently. All you need to do is just walk over to the bridge when you go down the ramp, backpedal slightly so your character is just over the edge of the bridge but you haven't fallen, and then just log out. And then when you log back in, you're going to be right at the entrance to Deadmines. Now, I don't know how many people actually know about this because I'll be honest with you, I've never used it. I literally was just trying to find somewhere very close to the start of the instance where I could execute a logout skip. And I'm kind of gutted that I haven't been doing this for months. Now, this one really took some finding. I'd tried all over the place to try and actually execute a good logout skip to Razorfen Downs, because when you're heading into Razorfen Downs and you're going through the section outside, there's always someone who gets lost, or there's PvP going on out there, or someone just dies to a mob trying to get through. And it is actually quite a decent run through all of the elites to actually get into the tunnel to then make it to the instance portal. Now, this is a great skip whether you're Horde or Alliance, but if you're Horde and you're heading down from Camp Tarajo, which is probably where you're going to come from, instead of heading down to Razorfen Downs, you want to go into Balmodan, which is actually up this hill. When you go in, you can just ignore all the mobs because they're such low level, and there's even little pillars like this where you can jump on them to reset everything if you want to. But ultimately, you want to make your way through and down until you get into this room. Now, you can just clip up the wall, log out in this area here. After 20 seconds, when you log back in, you're going to be outside Razorfen Downs. Now, I thought this one was quite a crazy find actually, because it's not really anywhere near Razorfen Downs, or it doesn't appear to be anywhere near Razorfen Downs. When you actually look on the add-on and you see where the segments are, and what these segments are basically is if you execute a logout skip in one of these areas, you'll always go to one of the marks on the map, or an instance portal. So the instance portal is going to be Razorfen Downs, and you'll notice that Balmodan slots nicely into the segment where Razorfen Downs is. Now, this personally is a skip that I will use on every single character when I go to Razorfen Downs, no matter what level I am, because, as I say, there's plenty of places you can reset all the mobs inside the keep at Balmodan, and it's a very easy logout skip to do. Next up is Uldaman, and now there's two ways to actually approach Uldaman, and I would say one would be more for Horde and one would be more for Alliance, but you can do both of them as Horde and Alliance. The reason I say this is because the Horde, if you was to fly into Badlands, you're going to have to run past Uldaman to execute one of the logout skips. So let's just talk about the one that's in the entrance first. As soon as you enter the actual cave to Uldaman, you'll see this tent. It's as simple as just jumping onto the very big peak of this tent, logging out, logging in, and you're going to be outside the instance portal. Now, that's all well and good, but when you think about Uldaman, the threat starts right outside. So if you're on your own trying to get in because maybe the rest of the group's inside already, there's no warlock for them just to walk out of the instance portal and summon you, you're going to need a way to get in quick and safe, preferably without killing any elites. And there are tons of elites outside if they're alive, and there's going to be a few elites in the cave on the way to the tent. So the other option you've got where you don't need to have any threat from elites whatsoever is actually going over into Lochmodan. Now, this would be preferable for Alliance because as Alliance, if you land in Lochmodan, you've pretty much got to run past this cave to get to Badlands anyway. But you can head down into this cave here, then follow the small stream of water inside until it gets to the bottom of the cave where it's now a bigger body of water, and you'll see down the bottom there's a chest. If you make sure your character is directly above that chest, so make sure you look sort of downwards on your character and you see, yep, your character is directly above the chest. When you then log out and you log back in, you're going to go all the way from this cave, very safe cave by the way, with very low level mobs, all the way to the entrance to Uldaman. Outside of Razorfen Downs, that's probably one of my favourites, and even as Horde, I would probably travel past the entrance of Uldaman to go and do this skip, because it just means you haven't got to worry about any elites at all. You've not really got to worry about PvP going on, except for the fact people who see this video and start doing the skip, this cave could have more PvP in than Uldaman itself. I didn't really think about that. Now, I'm very briefly going to mention Blackfathom Deeps purely just to make sure that we've got all of the ones available for Phase 1 and 2 dungeons and raids in one video. But I won't bore you because I'd imagine most people have done this skip now. But there are new people joining all the time. So if you're heading to Blackfathom Deeps, when you actually get to the top and you drop down into the water, all you've got to do is swim to this wall here, log out, log in, and you'll be at the entrance. Don't want to say a lot else more about that. It's a great skip. We've all used it, but if you're new and you're going to your first Blackfathom Deeps, you don't need to run all the way through the cave. Now, you might have noticed that I put Gnomeregan in quite small text on the thumbnail. The reason I've done that is because I didn't want it to stand out too much, because whilst it is a skip, you're not saving much time. It's fairly pointless. The reason it's fairly pointless is purely because of the teleporter that the Horde use. So I was kind of hoping when I went on my alliance that it wouldn't use the teleport location as an instance area, but unfortunately it does. Otherwise, this would have been a fantastic skip for alliance. Now, don't get me wrong, a skip might be found, but I have a feeling for a decent skip to happen, you're going to have to be closer to the entrance and further away from the teleport area. You'd probably have to head into the back door, which, like the area where the back door is, at which point it's probably pointless. But I will tell you anyway, because technically as Alliance, you're going to save a few seconds, but that's about it. When you come down the lift and you see this machine here, if you jump on top of it and then log out and log in, you're going to end up at the teleport area where the Horde come in. I've actually timed myself running to here, and it takes longer to run there than it does to log out and log back in. And you do also skip a couple of mobs in the path, but really it's actually from that section to then the instance portal itself, which is the annoying part. So I wanted to throw it in, but it's not groundbreaking. And the last one I wanted to mention is what I said about at the start, which is Sunken Temple. Now, this is an awful, awful place to get through because it's so big and people definitely get lost in here. The instance is completely locked in Phase 2. I've tried to get in, and the Blizzard devs already said it weren't ever going to be open in Phase 2. So don't waste your time going to do this yet, but in Phase 3, it will be useful. And if for some reason you are a completionist and you're trying to speak to all of the elders, then there is one down here as well. And I've also seen a dragon outside protecting it, but when I went back earlier it was gone. Just an FYI, but you can reset the dragon anyway. But basically it's the same as Blackfathom Deeps. You're going to want to head down the steps, get to the very bottom, swim under, and then just stand around here against the wall, log out, and when you log back in, you're going to have skipped all the way down to the instance portal. Now, I see that one being mega useful in Phase 3. Not so much now, but in Phase 3, it wouldn't surprise me if Sunken Temple was actually the level up raid due to the size of it and everything. I'd say it pretty much ticks the criterias for what would constitute a good level up raid. So this could be used a lot in Phase 3. But they're all the skips I know. If there's any skips that you know that I've missed off this list, or if there was any skips that you didn't know and you actually really like it, drop a comment, because that always helps the algorithm. And make sure you like, subscribe to the channel as well, and I'll see you on the next one.